Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more extra credits, continuing on with the extra history series on Suleiman the Magnificent. This time, part 5, Slave of God. Before we dive in, though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Bum, 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 bum.
Fate saw the jewel in me and pawed the heart apart to have it. It was one of his favorite poems. Once he saw the joy all throughout it, the hope with the struggle. But over time he had forgotten it all. All but that one line. It was 1533. Ibrahim led his forces one more time. This time they headed south. The Safavids had acted to anger him on more than one occasion. Now he would do away with the Shia kingdom to the south. But as Ibrahim marched his army south, he found that sun and mountains were their principal opponents. Territory was captured, but no battle was ever had. They wintered, then they captured Tabriz, the capital of the Safavids, without a fight. Now it was Suleiman's turn to join them, to accept homage and to remind his provinces of his might. There was only one problem with this conquest. The leader of the Safavids was nowhere to be found. He wasn't in their capital when Ibrahim marched in, and neither was his army. So they pushed deeper into Safavid territory, and yet, nothing. No army, no Shah. They took the ancient city of Baghdad, and yet during the whole march, their force wasn't even harassed. Not a trace was found of this phantom desert army or their king. The only way they knew this army was even real was the fact that everywhere they went, all the grain was missing. Markets were stripped bare, fields were burnt, wells smashed. Try as they might, his majestic imperial army of 200,000 simply couldn't catch up to the force of light horse of the Safavid king. No matter how far they chased him, he would always dance back, burning all in his wake. Eventually, he was forced to call off the pursuit. His grand army of 200,000 had lost 30,000 men without ever firing a shot.
Damn.
Supplies were just too difficult to attain, and his line of communication with his capital was stretched too thin. Even as he marched back to Istanbul, showered in praise and glory, he wondered how long they could even hold on to such remote and inhospitable territory. But something even worse troubled his mind. A black rage filled him. For months, Roxolana had been whispering to him of how his vizier, Ibrahim, was starting to forget who was sultan, that his friend had been returning friendship with ingratitude, that he considered himself master and Suleiman slave. He had put these words from his thoughts. He could not doubt Ibrahim.
Don't do this, Roxolana, no. Don't break up the bromance. Don't do it. No.
But on the campaign, Ibrahim had said that he would take the title of Saraskar Sultan. Now, in Safavid Persia, the governors were known as Sultan, but in the Ottoman Empire, there was only one Sultan. It burnt like a coal in his chest. It gnawed at his heart and wouldn't let him go. Each step on the road to Istanbul, it consumed his mind. Every minor irritation, every little problem, every small sign of arrogance from Ibrahim rekindled the thought with renewed vigor. At the start of January, they arrived back in Istanbul.
So what, is Ibrahim actually being more of a dick now, though?
And the thought still would not leave him. On the 15th of March, Ibrahim's body was found strangled in his room. There would be only one sultan in the Ottoman Empire. The next years passed in a renewed rivalry with that hated Spanish prince, Charles. Charles's forces had seized Tunis out from under him while he'd been busy in Safavid Persia, which led Suleiman to finally truly ally with the French. He joined them in their war in Italy against the Habsburgs, and broke with the ancient policy of Ibrahim to go to war with
Just fucking murdered Ibrahim and then we're moving on like that? Okay.
Venice. The war in Italy was poorly managed all around, with the French showing their true colors and often seeming more embarrassed to have a Muslim ally than they were eager to crush their foe. So at last, Suleiman recalled his great Admiral Barbarossa and had him remove the Venetians from the islands they had long occupied off the Ottoman coasts. He, Suleiman, also pushed the empire east, fighting with the Portuguese for control of the Indian Ocean and the lucrative trade it promised. He also warred in Hungary with Charles and Ferdinand. When John Zapolya died in 1540, Ferdinand had seen it as an opportunity to attack and laid siege to Buda. Suleiman again marched his forces north and repulsed the Viennese prince. But this time there would be no puppet state, no intermediaries. He annexed Hungary, finally bringing it under complete Ottoman control. And with the capitulation of the Habsburgs and the peace he forced upon them, he could finally again turn his eyes south, to the wellspring of tragedy, Safavid Persia. The question of succession still plagued his mind. He had made Mustafa his official heir. Even in Europe they wrote of him. One had said, "May God never allow a Barbary of such strength to come near us." Of his second son, Selim, even he knew they called him the sot behind his back. Bayezid, his third son, was perhaps not a bad man, but he wasn't a great one either. And his fourth son, Jehangir, was perhaps brilliant. His mind worked in ways that some days outpaced his own. But he was humpbacked and sickly. No one would ever accept him as sultan.
No.
But of all of his sons, only his first, Mustafa, was not of his beloved Roxelana. And so, as he sent his chief vizier, Rustam, to lead his army south, his mind was not at ease. Then he received a letter from Rustam, saying that the soldiers were beginning to whisper that Suleiman was weak and succumbing to old age because he was not out there leading them, that perhaps it was time for a younger prince, that they had even sent word to Mustafa along these lines, and that Mustafa had not entirely rejected them. He was furious.
Oh no.
Crushing the letter in his hand, he bellowed, "God protect us from Mustafa, daring to take such infamy upon himself during my lifetime." He immediately ordered the army recalled. The invasion would be cancelled. The next year he would lead them himself. And when summer came, he did. And then he sat and penned a letter to Mustafa. He would ask his son to join him, to clear his name. If he came, he was innocent. If he stayed away in fear, it would be an admission of guilt. Days passed. Then, outside of Karamania, a small band appeared on the horizon. Men on horseback, growing by the moment, coming towards the sprawling camp of the Imperial force. It was Mustafa, come to prove his innocence. As the sun set, Mustafa was summoned to his father's tent. He lifted the heavy flap and entered alone. Immediately he was set upon from all sides, while from behind a curtain his father watched in silence. But Mustafa fought with the strength of 10 men and threw off all of those who piled upon him. They raced forward to seize him again, but he froze them all with a look. The men wavered. Perhaps they were about to join this young warrior, so proud and alive. But then Suleiman stood and peered over the curtain with a glare of such fear and rage that the men all threw themselves upon Mustafa again. This time he could not shake them off. Once he was pinned, one of the men seized a nearby bowstring and strangled him to death. They then threw the body in front of the tent for all to see. But even as they did so, the black rage passed, and he, Suleiman, sank back down into his chair and wept. He would pay many times for this decision. So would his empire. So would the entire Ottoman world. For one decision sometimes decides 1,000 other choices. Now he had no option but to kill Mustafa's son, his own grandson, and so he sent men to Bursa to deliver the order. When they arrived and read the order to Murad...
Fucking Order 66, man, but with the royal family. Like, damn.
Mustafa's son, he simply said, "I am willing to die in obedience, not to the emperor's orders, but to God's." Then Suleiman ordered Mustafa not disposed of like a traitor, but given the funeral he deserved. For a week he lay in state in the Hagia Sophia, but it did nothing to assuage his guilt. And then word came that Jehangir, sick and weak beloved Jehangir, favorite of all his sons, succumbed to grief. For he had loved Mustafa and looked up to him, and now at last followed him into death.
Aww.
And he was left with but 2 sons. But even as he campaigned in Persia, his decision caused other ripples. Mustafa's death led the 2 remaining sons to quarrel more. He could see them both beginning to compete for power. His campaign in Persia proceeded like the last one, with the Safavids retreating and burning the land. This allowed him time to think. He would separate his sons, move them both farther from the capital. He would never be able to achieve a complete victory against the Safavids. They kept him occupied for a few years before he could finally force on them, if not the peace he desired, at least a peace he could accept. At last, with that out of the way, he could return and put his house in order. Then Roxelana died. Another little piece of him fell away.
I mean, I don't know, she kind of encouraged him to murder Ibrahim. And I don't think Ibrahim deserved that.
He ordered his sons apart, away from him, away from the capital, away from anywhere they might think of seizing the throne. Selim moved right away. Bayezid hesitated. His mind raced. What was hesitation other than disobedience? And what was disobedience to the Sultan except treason? His fury boiled over. He would not abide treason in his empire. He threw his support behind Selim against Bayezid and crushed his army in the field. But Bayezid fled with his family to the hated court of the Safavid
Why is Bayezid raising an army? What the fuck?
king. Again and again he demanded of the Safavids that they kill that filthy traitor, that they wipe him and his family from the world. But they refused. Again and again they refused. Then he made sure they wouldn't refuse. He even sent his own executioner to take their heads. He had but one son. And there he was, a lonely old man,
What the
walking through his
fuck?
garden.
Okay, I'm a little confused. This episode covered a lot of shit and didn't really explain any of that shit. Like, what was, like, do we not have accounts of what Bayezid was thinking? And why did Bayezid muster an army? Like, I'm really confused on that. Like, and then the whole killing of Ibrahim seemed a bit fast as well. Ooh. It seemed a bit quick as well. Like, I feel like we could have used more explanation on the rising tensions between Ibrahim and Suleiman. Like, that, I feel like, should have been an entire episode in of itself. Because last episode, weren't they still, like, best buddies? Like, I don't remember any rising tensions in episode 4. So yeah, this was kind of whiplash. Hopefully episode 6 recovers this, because this was pretty bad in my opinion. Like, and when I say bad, I don't mean like in terms of the quality that I expect from extra credits. This was bad in terms of like my average expectation from extra credits, because they make really high quality videos. In comparison to what I expect from them, this is a bad video because it just seemed very whiplashy for me, with information coming in quick, people dying, and no real explanation aside from Suleiman seemingly just being more and more paranoid. However, to me, it felt as though they didn't really give enough explanation to his rising paranoia, for me at least. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. This was Suleiman the Magnificent, Slave of God, Extra History number 5 by Extra Credits. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.